This week we're going to work on drawing faces. We're going to start with eyes. By default, as we learn how to draw eyes, we make that basic shape. We make our eye. We make eyelashes. I don't know anybody whose eyes actually look like this. What we're going to do is teach you how to actually look at your own eye and notice some differences, okay? So if you haven't ever really looked at your eye, you're going to either get a mirror or look at yourself in your camera, on your phone if you want to take a picture of your eye, or it's actually better to have somebody else take a picture of your eye so it's straight on. A couple of things that we need to talk through. One, you actually have a tear duct here. So your eyeball is round, so you actually have a tear duct here, okay? So the shape of it would be a little bit different. The eye itself, we're all made differently. Some people have a little bit more an almond-shaped eye. Some people have a really hard kind of angle right here. And it's almost more of a geometric kind of looking eye. Do the insides and the outsides of your eye, like so if this is your nose on this side, where your tear duct is this lower or higher than the outside? If you've ever made yourself an avatar or a Bitmoji character or anything like that, they've incorporated things like that into some of these programs, because you might have this part and then the outside eye actually goes up, so these are not exactly even. Most of us don't have perfectly even eyes. Your outside edge might be slightly lower. So as we look at our own eye for practice, don't worry, you're not going to be making a self-portrait, but you're going to use your own eye for practice. So as you start, this is the first thing, is actually look at the shape of your eye. One thing that's kind of weird to think about, but let's talk about comparative measurements for a second. If this is my eye, let's say, and I'm going to put my eyeball into it, I can kind of think of this is the height versus this is the width. Some people have a little bit more of, narrow opening, and some people have more of a wide opening. We're all made differently. We're all made uniquely by God to have different shaped eyes, which is a good thing. It'd be weird if everybody had the same shaped eyes. First off, look at the actual shape that your eye is. Most of us don't have this like whoosh, whoosh. So the next thing to think about, look at yourself straight in a mirror or into your camera. That means you're not tilting your chin down, you're not tilting your chin up, you're not going to the side, you're not doing the Instagram pose where you're looking, slightly out of the top of your eyes. Look straight, straight, straight into the camera. Most people are not going to see white on top of their iris. What actually happens is your lid usually covers the top part of your iris. If this is your eyelid, your actual pupil is not, it's going to be in the center, right? Your iris circle. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's a bunch of crows outside my window going nuts right now. So you got your iris is in the middle of this. So right now it's off-centered, let's say, from what you can see. It's going to be closer to the eyelid than the bottom. So at the same time, look at yourself straight, and can you actually see white? A lot of times the lower lid kind of just rests right there. Sometimes it covers it up. Sometimes you can't see white. This is where we're all a little different. Most of the time you can't see the top. There are a few people that have really, really wide eyes. Most of the time it's going to cover up part of it, and then this lower lid is going to kind of brush up to it, or maybe have a little bit of white. You can already see that looks a little bit more naturalistic. So as you're looking at your own eye, you're looking at the tear duct and the shape that your eye actually is, what you can see. Part of this too is how much white can you actually see? Can you see a lot of white on this side? Maybe your eyelid actually comes in here more, and you can see less of this white. So take a look at all these things: shape of your eye, shape of your tear duct, how much of your iris does your top lid cover? Can you see anything down here? And then actually look at this space and this space. Can you see? Because another thing people tend to do is they kind of do this, and they make their eye like really huge in proportion to this. Or I get a lot of this one. The animation kind of style eye. I get a lot of people who make their eye huge in their eye also. That's a little bit of a cartoony kind of a look. Your goal is to try and make your eye look actually real. Continuing on, so let's say, you know, I'm kind of drawing my eye. Let's say I kind of rethink the eyelid, and here's my tear duct. Maybe this eye comes down here. Maybe I'm seeing about this much. Think about your iris as a whole circle, even though you can't see that much, because what happens otherwise is people make their shape and then they do this. If I continued this circle, this would be way off-centered. So think about, like, if your iris, what you can't see, think about what's there, think about where the center is, and that's where your pupil would be. That's a common mistake, where you're almost finishing the circle because it's this part. So think, should this be kind of going a little bit, but you also don't want to make it straight. You don't want to do it that way either, because then you're drawing like an oval of your eye. Let's talk about your eyelashes a second. If you actually look at your eyelashes, we don't have eyelashes that go like this. Well, most of us don't. Most of the time when you look at your eyelashes, sometimes they're coming like straight at you, but a lot of times they're kind of going off to the side. But your eyelashes kind of swoop down before they come up. So if I'm doing a fringe of eyelash, a lot of times it's kind of doing that. So it's just overlapping. It's also kind of coming down into my space of my eye. It's going to look slightly different if you have mascara and makeup and all that kind of stuff. Some people, their eyelashes do kind of come forward, and what happens is you kind of end up seeing more of like a fringe like this. That's pretty common too, all right? Most people don't have this much, even if you got, like, you know, eyelash curler going and they're like, you got really long eyelashes and you're blessed that way. Most of the time they're still going to be kind of a little bit more in here. So however your eyelashes work, take a look at them. Usually they swoop down and overlap, especially off to the side here. But they're usually not like straight up. The other thing we gotta talk about is your bottom eyelashes. If you look at your bottom eyelashes, most people don't have this. Your bottom eyelashes are usually a lot less obvious than your top lashes. Even if you have really good, full, lush, dark eyelashes, even on the bottom, your eyelid is a lot thicker than you think it is. You don't really realize it. So when you actually look at yourself in the mirror really closely, what happens? What happens is your lashes actually are like here. There's a little bit of space that happens in between here and here. Kind of exaggerated a little bit for you guys to be able to see that. But you have to actually have a little bit of space for your eyelid. Everybody's made differently, different ethnicities and just different ages. You know, as you age, your eye kind of changes shape too. So that might not be quite this obvious. Some people don't have bottom eyelashes like very much, you know, and you might have them a little bit closer in here. I'm not saying that everybody doesn't have them on there, but it's something to like pay attention to, because maybe, you know, it's right there on the edge, but it's not coming out of the inside of your eye quite so much. You guys are going to now try to draw your own eye. There's a few other things to look at. One is, like, there's going to be a little bit of shading on the corners here because your eyeball is round. And think about your sphere, not your spear. Your spheres that you guys have been, you know, drawing. As it goes away from this would be the light source. As it goes to the edges, there's going to be some shading. So you're going to get a little bit of that. You might even get a little bit of shading underneath where your eyelashes are. If your iris is not pure white, you might want to shade that in as well. You may have a very definite crease going on. Once again, I'm kind of exaggerating it. You wouldn't draw these lines this heavy. I'm going to show you a better example in a minute, just for demonstrations. But maybe you have a really, really defined lid. Some of you do, some of you don't. Once again, as you get older, it kind of starts happening. But maybe you have some shading going on right there as well. Start out, what is the actual shape of your eye? And then, before you get too far, notice, like, you know what, my corners of my eyes are actually a little bit higher. Think about this versus this, if this is where my tear duct is. Maybe I need to extend this out a little bit. It's okay to erase a little bit as you're working, but I'm also barely touching the paper. Okay, maybe I need to lower this a little bit. I do have my lid that's pretty obvious on the top. Once again, it kind of makes this like strong angle there. I have a lot of angles in my face. Tear duct. This we kind of go into shadow. Iris. Mine is not this big, so then I have to kind of make some adjustments. Make it a little bit smaller. Barely touch there. Think about the whole shape here, and what would be the center. And my eyelid comes down a little bit more. Cover that. So maybe that's my starting point. Eyelashes. Eyelashes are one place where it's okay to really draw those like darker if you have them. I don't have super obvious eyelashes, so they're kind of just fringe there off to the side. My eyelashes are just kind of little bits down there. My iris is not white. So these are just practice that you guys can kind of work from. So then the same thing, and then I have to start looking at like, okay, the next step is, do I have not necessarily bags under my eyes, guys. We all have bags under our eyes. If you touch your face right underneath your eyeball, it's soft right here before you get a bone right here. So you're gonna have a highlight here. You're gonna have a highlight here where your cheekbone is, but most of the time we have a little bit of shading that's going on here. Some of us it's more pronounced if we're like not sleeping real well. Your lid of your eye is kind of almost like a cylinder, so it'll have a highlight and a shadow. So then if you are kind of moving on into like where your eyebrow might be, you might have shading in here. You might have strong shadow kind of going in here. You probably have a little bit of shadow going in here. There's a reason that they teach putting on makeup as it is, because you have a natural shadow here and you have a natural highlight right here where your brow bone is. So now you're going to actually look at like where your shadow and highlight and everything is. All right, so today you're going to look at yourself in the mirror or take a picture of yourself real quick with your phone. Suggested have somebody else take a picture of your eye. Zoom in, I mean not zoom in, but get real close so that you are pretty much filling your camera, you know, with your eyeball, your eye. Include your eyebrow. You'll see a little bit like where your nose is, but you are going to try and actually make your eye look like your eye. Shape and everything of it first, and then try like just a little bit of gentle shading like this. It's okay if it's a little hatchy and, you know, not like 100% smooth, because we're going to work to that. All right? All right, go practice your eyes.